Welcome back. Tonight, our journey leads us into the emerald rainforests of Central America, where towering trees quietly guard the remains of a forgotten world. Hidden beneath vines, drifting mist, and centuries of silence stand enormous stone pyramids, ancient temples, and abandoned plazas where thousands of people once gathered beneath the tropical sky. For generations, these remarkable cities slept in silence. Travelers occasionally heard whispers of carved stones hidden deep within the jungle, but few believed such places could truly exist. Nature patiently wrapped every staircase, every palace, and every monument in a green embrace, as though protecting an extraordinary secret from the passing centuries. Yet these silent ruins belong to one of history's most remarkable civilizations. The Maya mastered mathematics with astonishing brilliance. They observed the stars with extraordinary patience, created calendars of breathtaking precision, and recorded their history through one of the most sophisticated writing systems ever developed in the ancient Americas. Their cities flourished for hundreds of years. Great kings ruled magnificent kingdoms, artists covered temples with elegant carvings, and skilled builders raised pyramids that still rise above the forest canopy today. Everything seemed permanent. Yet history tells another story. These magnificent cities slowly fell silent. Their plazas emptied. Their monuments stopped recording new kings. The voices that once echoed through sacred temples gradually disappeared into the jungle. No single battle destroyed them. No invading empire erased them overnight. Instead, one of humanity's greatest civilizations slowly unraveled, leaving behind a mystery that continues to fascinate historians, archaeologists, and dreamers alike. Tonight, we begin following the quiet trail they left behind, searching patiently through ancient stones, forgotten paths, and the whispers of the rainforest itself. The mystery of these silent cities remained hidden for centuries. Then, in the year 1839, two remarkable travelers decided to follow the faint whispers drifting out of the Central American rainforest. One was John Lloyd Stevens, an American lawyer, writer, and explorer whose curiosity often led him toward places forgotten by the rest of the world. Beside him traveled Frederick Catherwood, a gifted British architect and artist whose patient eye could capture even the smallest details carved into ancient stone. Together they ventured into landscapes that few outsiders had ever explored. Their journey was anything but easy. Heavy rain turned narrow paths into deep rivers of mud. Thick jungle vines blocked the sunlight, while clouds of insects filled the humid air around them. Every step demanded patience. Every mile seemed to disappear beneath endless forests stretching beyond sight. Guided by local knowledge, they slowly moved deeper into the wilderness, crossing rivers and climbing gentle hills where the sounds of birds echoed above the dense green canopy. Then one quiet morning, near the Copan River, everything changed. As workers carefully cleared away tangled branches and creeping vines, shapes began to emerge from beneath centuries of silence. First came a carved stone monument, then another. Soon elegant stairways, towering temples, and beautifully sculpted figures appeared as though the forest itself had been protecting them all along. Catherwood stood quietly, sketchbook in hand, studying every graceful line carved into the weathered stone. Stevens gazed across the silent plaza, realizing they were not standing among ordinary ruins but inside the forgotten heart of an extraordinary civilization. The jungle had hidden these cities for generations. Now at last the ancient stones were ready to tell their story. As the expedition continued, each newly uncovered temple revealed another small piece of a much larger story. These silent cities had not been built by strangers from distant lands, nor by a forgotten empire from across the sea. They were the remarkable achievement of the Maya. For hundreds of years, the Maya had transformed the rainforests of Central America into a thriving world of independent city-states. Each city possessed its own rulers, temples, traditions, and proud identity, yet together they shared a culture that was among the most sophisticated of the ancient world. Towering pyramids rose above lively plazas where merchants traded colorful goods, skilled craftsmen shaped delicate works of jade and stone, and priests carefully observed the endless movement of the heavens. To the Maya, time itself was sacred. Every sunrise, every season, and every passing year formed part of a vast cosmic rhythm connecting the earth, the stars, and the lives of ordinary people. Their astronomers patiently watched the skies night after night, recording the journeys of the sun, the moon, and the bright planets with astonishing accuracy. Their calendars became so precise that many still admire their brilliance today. Writing was equally important. Across stone monuments and graceful stairways, skilled scribes carved beautiful symbols that preserved the stories of kings, victories, sacred ceremonies, and moments they believed should never be forgotten. To those who walked these magnificent cities centuries ago, their civilization must have seemed destined to last forever. The temples stood strong, the harvests filled the valleys, the rulers believed the blessings of the heavens would continue without end. Yet beneath this peaceful and prosperous world, quiet signs of change had already begun to appear, signs that almost no one could see, signs that would slowly reshape the destiny of an entire civilization. For generations, the Maya built a world that appeared remarkably stable. Across the southern lowlands, powerful cities grew beneath the tropical sky. Tikal, Copan, Palenque, and Calakmul became centers of learning, art, and sacred tradition. Their rulers commissioned magnificent temples, while skilled builders raised graceful pyramids that seemed to touch the heavens. Each city was independent, yet none truly stood alone. Messengers traveled along forest roads carrying news between kingdoms. Merchants exchanged jade, obsidian, cacao, fine textiles, and rare feathers gathered from distant lands. Royal families strengthened alliances through carefully arranged marriages, while scribes faithfully recorded important events upon carved stone monuments. Life followed familiar rhythms. At sunrise, farmers quietly walked toward their fields of maize, the crop that sustained both body and spirit. Craftsmen patiently shaped elegant pottery and polished precious stones. Priests climbed temple stairways to observe the first light of dawn and mark another sacred day upon their calendars. To the Maya, harmony depended upon balance. The people cared for the land. The rulers performed sacred ceremonies. The heavens, in return, blessed the earth with gentle rains and plentiful harvests. For many generations, this delicate balance appeared unbreakable. Yet history often changes long before anyone notices. Small disagreements between neighboring kingdoms slowly became more frequent. Trade routes that once carried peaceful exchange sometimes carried uneasy messages instead. New monuments celebrated military victories more often than seasons of peace. Few people could have imagined where these quiet changes would eventually lead. The magnificent cities still stood proudly beneath the rainforest sky. Their temples still echoed with ceremony, but somewhere beyond the distant horizon, the first shadows of an approaching storm had already begun their silent journey toward the Maya world. The first signs of change were almost impossible to notice. No great city collapsed overnight. No single battle suddenly brought the Maya world to an end. Instead, the rhythm of life began to shift, slowly, quietly, almost like the changing of the seasons. For generations, the rulers had believed that prosperity would continue forever. Every new temple, every carved monument, and every sacred ceremony reflected their confidence that the future would be much like the past. But nature does not always follow human expectations. The rains, once so dependable, became less predictable. Some years the planting season arrived later than expected. Farmers waited patiently beneath cloudless skies, hoping the familiar storms would soon return. Most believed they eventually would. After all, the Maya had overcome difficult seasons before. Yet these quiet changes continued. In distant cities, rulers began paying closer attention to their food stores. Messengers traveled more frequently between neighboring kingdoms. Important gatherings became less about celebration and more about careful planning for uncertain days ahead. Life continued much as before. Markets remained busy. Children still played in the plazas. Priests still climbed the temple steps each morning to greet the rising sun. To an ordinary traveler, everything would have appeared peaceful. But beneath that peaceful surface, invisible pressures were slowly building. Like tiny cracks hidden inside a great stone pyramid, they remained unseen until the weight became too great. The forests were still beautiful. The temples still stood proudly. The stars continued their ancient journey across the night sky. Yet the balance that had protected the Maya world for centuries was becoming increasingly fragile. No one could know that these gentle warnings were only the beginning, for beyond the horizon, greater challenges were already quietly approaching. For generations, the forests had provided everything the Maya needed. Towering trees sheltered the land from the strongest heat of the sun. Gentle seasonal rains filled natural reservoirs, nourished the maize fields, and brought fresh life to rivers that quietly crossed the landscape. Nature and civilization seemed to exist in peaceful harmony. As the centuries passed, however, the great cities continued to grow. More families settled near the temples, more fields were cleared to produce food. More limestone was carefully shaped into magnificent pyramids, palaces, and ceremonial plazas whose brilliant white walls reflected the tropical sunlight. Each new monument was a celebration of achievement, yet every stone carried an unseen cost. To create the smooth white plaster that covered these magnificent buildings, enormous amounts of wood were needed to heat the limestone. Forests that had stood peacefully for countless generations slowly began to retreat from the growing cities. At first, almost no one noticed. The trees still seemed endless. The rivers still flowed. The harvest still arrived with reassuring familiarity. But nature often changes in quiet ways. When forests become smaller, the soil becomes more fragile. When the soil grows weaker, each season demands a little more effort than the one before. The changes were so gentle that they blended into everyday life. One year felt only slightly different from the last, then another, and another. Meanwhile, far above the temples, the sky itself was beginning to change. The clouds that had faithfully returned each season no longer followed their familiar rhythm. Some rainy seasons arrived late, others ended far too soon. The people continued to hope that balance would soon return. After all, the heavens had always provided before. Surely they would do so again. But the silence growing within the forests was now beginning to reach the sky itself. For many years, the warning signs remained almost invisible. Then slowly, the rhythm of the seasons began to change. The rains that had once arrived with comforting certainty became less predictable. Some years they came later than expected. Other years they fell too lightly, leaving the earth thirsty beneath the warm tropical sun. At first, few people were alarmed. A single poor harvest could simply be unfortunate. 2 difficult seasons might be explained away. Surely the generous rains would soon return. The Maya had always believed that the balance between the heavens and the earth would restore itself with time. But nature followed its own quiet path. As the seasons continued, rivers flowed a little lower than before. Reservoirs that had faithfully supplied fresh water no longer filled as completely. Farmers looked across their fields with growing concern, noticing that each harvest demanded a little more patience and offered a little less in return. The rulers responded as they always had. Sacred ceremonies became more frequent. Offerings were made with sincere devotion. Priests climbed the tallest temples, watching the skies with hopeful eyes, waiting for the familiar clouds to gather once again above the rainforest. Yet the clouds often drifted away. The people continued to trust their leaders. They continued planting. They continued praying. Life moved forward quietly, even as uncertainty slowly settled over the land like a gentle evening mist. Looking back today, historians can recognize these years as the beginning of a much greater story. No single drought ended the Maya civilization. No single season brought disaster. Instead, countless small hardships quietly gathered together, like tiny streams joining to form a powerful river, and before long those gentle streams would become impossible for anyone to ignore. Years passed. The changing seasons slowly became a new reality. The droughts were no longer brief interruptions. They lingered, returning again and again, testing the patience of every village and every great city across the Maya world. The vast reservoirs that had once reflected the bright blue sky began to shrink beneath the warm sun. Their calm waters slowly retreated, revealing smooth stones that had remained hidden for generations. Fields of maize still stretched across the valleys, but each harvest became less certain than the last. Families worked with quiet determination, planting their crops with hope, never knowing whether the life-giving rains would arrive in time. The kings continued their sacred ceremonies, temple stairways filled with priests offering prayers beneath the open sky. Smoke from incense drifted gently into the morning air, carrying silent hopes toward the heavens. But the clouds remained distant. Across the great cities, everyday life became quieter. Markets welcomed fewer visitors and long trading journeys became less frequent. The familiar rhythm that had guided Maya life for centuries began to slow, almost too gently to notice. Yet the magnificent temples still stood proudly above the rainforest. Their carved stones continued watching over the silent plazas as though patiently waiting for brighter seasons to return. Today, archaeologists can still see these quiet changes hidden beneath layers of history, not through legends, but through dried lake beds, ancient pollen, and the silent traces left behind by nature itself. The earth remembered every season, and deep beneath the forests, it carefully preserved the story that the people themselves could never have imagined they were leaving behind. Centuries passed before the silent cities began to reveal their secrets once again. Modern archaeologists arrived carrying notebooks instead of swords, cameras instead of shields, and an endless curiosity about the people who had once called these forests home. Every carved monument, every broken staircase, every layer of soil beneath the ancient trees became part of an extraordinary puzzle. Scientists carefully studied the mud resting at the bottom of quiet lakes. Deep beneath the surface, tiny grains of ancient pollen had remained undisturbed for more than 1,000 years. These invisible traces became a remarkable record of the past. They revealed that dense forests had gradually become thinner, fields had expanded, trees had quietly disappeared from the surrounding landscape. In nearby caves, another story was waiting. Slowly growing stone formations, created one tiny drop of water at a time, preserved a natural record of changing rainfall across countless generations. When researchers carefully examined these ancient formations, they discovered a pattern that was impossible to ignore. The years of prosperity had been followed by decades of unusually dry conditions. Not for a single season, not even for a single generation, but again and again. The evidence was calm, silent, patient, just like the ancient cities themselves. No single discovery solved the mystery. Instead, every new clue gently joined the one before it, like small streams flowing together into a quiet river of understanding. The Maya had not simply vanished. Their story had been written into the forests, hidden within the lakes, and preserved inside the very stones of the earth. The deeper historians looked, the clearer one truth slowly became. The fall of the great Maya cities was never caused by one event alone. It was the result of many quiet changes unfolding together across the passing centuries. Our journey through the silent cities now gently comes to an end. The mystery of the Maya was never a single question with a single answer. Instead, it became a quiet reminder that even the greatest civilizations live within the rhythms of nature. The magnificent temples, the graceful pyramids, the beautiful carvings that still rest beneath the rainforest, all remain as peaceful witnesses to a world that once flourished with extraordinary imagination, knowledge, and hope. The Maya did not simply disappear. Their great cities slowly faded into silence, but their descendants continued living across Central America, carrying their languages, traditions, and memories through countless generations. Even today, millions of Maya people still call these ancient lands home. Their story continues. As evening settles across the rainforest once more, gentle mist drifts between the towering trees. Golden sunlight slowly fades behind the distant hills. The songs of birds grow quieter. The ancient stone temples return to peaceful silence beneath the endless green canopy. Imagine yourself standing quietly at the edge of one of these forgotten plazas. A soft breeze passes through the trees. The warm air carries the gentle scent of earth after rain. There is nothing left to discover tonight. No questions that must be answered. No paths that must still be followed. The ancient city has shared its story, and now it simply rests. Perhaps it has always been waiting for someone to listen with patience. As you slowly leave these peaceful ruins behind, allow your thoughts to become lighter. Let the worries of today quietly drift away, just like the morning mist disappearing into the forest. Take one slow, comfortable breath, then another. Feel the calm around you. Feel the stillness of the ancient stones. And as the rainforest softly whispers through the trees, allow your eyes to grow heavier, your breathing slower, and your mind wonderfully peaceful. May your night be calm, may your dreams be gentle, and may the quiet echoes of the silent cities remain with you long after sleep has softly arrived. Good night.